From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's Indescribably Good. I'm Aslan Hajavandi alongside Corey Clark. We work for Warchant.com. Use the promo code Warchant30 for 30 free days of access to the ultimate Seminole sports source. Feel like it's going to be a good show today. It's Renegade Express. Corey, how are you, man? Ready to ride some ponies?
I am, man. I'm ready. I'm fired up. I'm ready for this.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. You know, my day started off though a little bit weird, a little bit off.
Okay.
Had a bit of a, I call it nightmare. I don't want to call it a nightmare. It might be, yeah, I guess kind of a nightmare. My dream was I was at some house. It was your house apparently, but it was kind of like the house I stayed at when I went on my vacation to Bali earlier in the year. But anyhow, I'm in the living room area, and Stephanie, the first lady of Wake Up Warchant, Corey's better half.
Sure.
She's kind of hoarse. Her voice is scratchy. She's blowing her nose. I'm like, and I have all my gear with me. I'm coming to your house to record the show. And I'm like, are you all right, Steph? She's like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, you're not. I'm like, you have coronavirus, don't you? And she's like, I don't know, probably. And I'm like, oh, God, I got to get out of here. And I couldn't find my keys. And I kept looking around your house. And as I'm, like, looking around your house, Stephanie's on the phone, and she's, like, touching all my gear. And I'm like, stop touching all my stuff. And I was, like,
It's like Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I'm, like, trying to leave your place. But, like, every time I try to leave, I'm, like, going down the wrong door. And I'm like, damn it, I just touched another doorknob. It creeped me out. And then I woke up.
That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. Did you have some ill will towards Stephanie when you woke up?
Never. No.
Not even a right away when you woke up. Were you
No.
like, man, what a? Okay. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll have a dream and somebody says something mean to me, or somebody does something to me, and you wake up and immediately like you're mad at that person. Then you wake, oh no, that was a dream. That didn't happen.
I spend all my waking time angry at people. You know.
Well, that's true.
I
Yeah,
reserve.
you don't want to do it, and you're unconscious when you're unconscious.
But anyhow, how are you holding up,
That is
Corey?
a nightmare. I'm good, buddy. I'm good. So far, so good. Knock on wood. Doing my best to social distance. I played golf earlier this week with some buddies, but we socially distanced. We all get our own cart, and obviously we have our own bags and our own balls and everything. So didn't play great, but I'm not supposed to. I'm not out there to play great, Aslan. I know I'm not Jordan Spieth. You know what I'm saying? I'm not Corey Pavin. Corey Clark. I'm not Corey Pavin.
Strong reference. Man, 95 at Shinnecock. What a
Oh,
tournament,
man. We'll never forget, will we?
No, never. All right, man, I'm glad. I think I'm going to try to get Ira on the golf course. We might try to play some tennis. Hopefully you'll make your triumphant return
Yeah,
to
I was going to say, I'm going to
be.
be, my plan is to be back down there next Friday.
Okay.
So a week from today, I'm going to be back in Tallahassee. And, yeah, man, I'm all for it. Now that I've gotten the bug a little bit, I'm all for golf. And I'm all for, I'm definitely for tennis, too.
All right. So no hugs, though. I can't hug you when I see you.
No hugs, no sneezes. Or coughs. Nothing. Man, I'm telling you what, that's the thing. Once we get back to people going places, like more than it is now, man, you better not be coughing in public.
Yeah, you're going to get judged.
You're going to get, it's going to be like telling a racist joke. Like, people are going to look at you like, dude, what are you, like, not here. Like, I mean, it's really the backlash for that stuff is going to be off the charts. You better not bring a cough or a sneeze into any public space.
What's going to be worse, the backlash from that, or we've already seen some terrible stories about people responding to being told to put a mask on. So I wonder, like, what's going to be the more belligerent of the two.
I would think I would think people would understand, like, okay, I get one thing, you don't want to wear a mask because you're not showing any symptoms and you're not sick, whatever. It's crazy to get mad at an employee making $12 an hour telling you because they have a policy and it's their job. Now, number one, I don't think you need to leave it up to hourly employees to make people understand that. That should either be a manager or maybe security, not some 12-year-old, some 19-year-old kid. But yeah, man, I think anybody that coughs in public better understand that there's going to be, unless it's like I got a tick, something went down the wrong pipe. Like, if you're out there coughing and sneezing, man, I think there's going to be some legitimate backlash that people need to be set for. That stuff with the employees is just nonsense. Like, it's a store policy. Don't go into the store then.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
I feel like we could make a killing if we made T-shirts that just said, relax, it's allergies.
Oh,
like
that's
when
not
you-
a bad play.
Like when you
yeah.
do cough or sneeze, like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
But anyhow, enough of that. So let's play sports. We're going to play sports, it sounds like. I'm just kidding. Who knows? Nobody really knows. But there's some positive developments going on, it sounds like. Corey, I don't know. I'm checking Twitter. People going on Feinbaum show. I think it was Brett McMurphy, although Ira wasn't as bullish on Brett McMurphy's sentiment on the Feinbaum show that there might be a sort of a bubbling thought or opinion out there that not only now, so James Franklin, let me start here first. James Franklin, I think on Wednesday, said that he believes that, listen, like if 75% of your conference can play ball. We'll see how, gung-ho he is when Ohio State can practice and Penn State can't. But, we discussed that, you, myself, Ira, and Gene on the website earlier in the week. And then on Thursday, McMurphy tells Feinbaum that there's kind of maybe the sentiment that, maybe they don't need students totally on campus to play sports. To which I think Ira was like, I don't know about that. Which I would say, I don't know about that. Where do you stand on that? Because you've been pretty firm, and I haven't done a good job of underscoring your point, and you've made this for several weeks, just about like that sort of thin line of how you're going to tell kids, okay, it's okay to go to a crowded classroom, but you can't go to a football game. Does the same thing kind of apply to how you're going to tell kids, you can't come to campus, but we're still going to play sports?
Yeah, and before I forget, I think I saw the University of Arizona president came out and said that his plan, his hope, is to be able to test every single antibodies test, I guess,
right,
for every single person that comes to Arizona, all 60,000, it's employees, obviously students, grad students, all of them. His goal is to test every single person affiliated with the University of Arizona. Now that's great in theory. We'll see if that's even realistic. But yeah, man, look, I have two schools of thought there. I understand that sentiment that, hey, if kids aren't on campus, then you can't play these games. Except, really? Like, there's no constitution where that's a law. That's not a bylaw. It seems pragmatic and realistic to think, okay, if you're not opening up these classrooms, how can you open up the football games? Well, my counter to that would be, well, look, we're going to test all these football players. It's a lot easier to test 100 people than 38,000 people. And we're going to test all the coaches and trainers and managers. So you're talking, what's that for a football team? Even a big one like Florida State, probably 130, 140?
I was going to say 200 just to be on the liberal side of things, but that sounds about right. Yeah, we'll say
100. Let's say 150.
All right.
Well, okay, you test 150 people. That's a lot easier than testing every student and every professor at your school. So you could still be open for business, i.e. your teachers are still teaching classes. But it's like it becomes a commuter school, except nobody really commutes. They all do it from home, but it's like a commuter school where there's no on-campus housing. This again is a last resort. But I don't quite understand why you couldn't do that and still have a college football season. Because again, we get it. It takes the student out of the student athlete and it makes them just basically an athlete for you. But they're still going to class, albeit electronically. And if they're tested and they're with trainers and they're with people that know, then I don't really see what the huge problem would be. It seems like that needs to be an option too. It's not the first option or even the ninth option. But I do think, like McMurphy said, I'm not bullish on it. I think most of these school presidents, it's a little bit political or a lot political, depending on what school you're at.
Is it though? I feel like everybody wants to play. I mean, everybody wants to play.
No,
that's one thing, but everybody's saying like we're planning on playing.
It's the optics of your school isn't safe enough to open back up for kids to be on campus, but you think it's safe enough to play football? Like, so are these guys you're just going to exploit them and use them to make money? Because you desperately need them to play, so they're going to risk their safety, but the other kids on campus, they're not coming. I guess that's. But again, I think you could explain it by saying, look, we can test them. We can almost bubble them, and we can quarantine them, and they're all by themselves, and we can make sure this happens, and they can still go to class. They still have the same roommates, but they're all tested. We can't test 38,000 people, but I do think if we're adults, we understand, hey, man, these guys, this sport keeps the lights on. So we have to do, and those players know it, and they'll have to sign something, surely. But if they don't sign it, they don't have to play. That's fine. I don't think you would need to be revoking scholarships if kids don't feel like it's too safe to play. But then you get into that. That's the slippery slope too. Like, are you gonna what if a kid says no, I don't want to play? Well, is he on scholarship still? Are you gonna hold that over kids' heads if they don't feel safe? I think by and large, 98% of all college football players want to play, desperately want to play, especially if there's testing and they can know they're safe. But anyway. I just don't think it's realistic to test everybody on the campus. No chance.
Then there's no way you're having fans in the stands, right? Like,
there's no way. Limited. There's no way you're having 80,000 fans in the stands.
Well, no.
In my opinion.
So wait, you're not going to even have kids on campus.
No, I'm saying that's a last resort. I'm saying that's a last resort. Oh, you're saying, yeah, no, I think you could have people in Tallahassee that want to come watch a football game,
but kids aren't on campus doing face-to-face learning like that. To me, that's a bridge too far.
Well, I just think I think we don't know enough about this thing.
We clearly don't. We're like 3 months into this, and we don't.
But you read these studies that they've done, and so like 99% of all cases, I saw this on Twitter today, come from being indoors, mostly at home. It's spread from in-person home contact to contact. It's not spread. It's rarely spread for like a dinner outing or a lunch outing. I know that's how Tony the Baselli's got it, but that's very rare. It's usually for being in constant contact with someone indoors, which is why prisons are overrun with it. It's why nursing homes are overrun with it. And meatpacking plants. They're all sharing the same air and the same space. If you're outdoors, if you could do student learning outdoors and not in classrooms where they're all sharing the same space in big buildings with 800 or 1,000 people in it, if you could come up with a way where you're doing like, you remember sometimes back in elementary school or middle school, if your teacher was feeling good and it was a sunny day, he'd be like, hey guys, let's go out on the the picnic table. Or the quad, and let's go do a class there. Maybe get teachers to do that. I feel like it's a lot safer outdoors. I don't feel like that. We all know that. It's a lot safer outdoors than indoors. So 25,000 people in a stadium or 20,000 people in a stadium is probably much, much safer than 200 people in a lecture hall. Maybe.
I can't even.
But yeah, look, man, you can't wrap your mind around any of it. Can any of us? I mean, it's all craziness. It's all me reading something on Twitter and then spewing it up on this show. I don't know. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. A lot of it is wishful thinking, but I understand that if kids aren't campus, you can't play. Yada yada. I get it. Sure. If we're going to treat college football like it's a normal college sport, if we're going to continue that guise in that charade, then sure, yeah, you can't do it. But if they all just have, they're allowed to make money now. If they're in our next year, if we all just say, look, guys, we're going to admit it to you. These guys, we need these guys to make a lot of money for the university. They know it. We know it. You know it. We're going to throw down that facade. We're going to break it down and just tell you that. And hey, they got to play for us. They got to play on Saturday. We're going to test them. They'll be fine.
Coming up after the break, the real story about Santa Claus. Yeah, we're just out here just poking away at everything. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into the medicine here. What do you make of, did you see the comments from Jack Swarbrick, the athletic director at Notre Dame?
I did not, no.
Let's hear it. He thinks that Notre Dame will be fine, even though they're quasi-independent. I think he was talking about they'll be able to put together a robust schedule, even if everybody goes to like conference only. But he was trying to say that schools should do like a conference only +1. And then obviously if you do that, there's enough schools out there where they'll make their +1 be Notre Dame. And then I don't know. There's probably some of the ACC schools that would want to play that could fill in some of those gaps. So,
right.
I mean, all those things that we kind of touched upon Monday. Do you go conference only schedule? Do you need all your teams in the conference to be able to play? Those kind of questions that we batted around on Monday have kind of been talked about by power brokers and multimillionaire coaches in the last few days. So, shout out to Ira and Gene for having good discussion points for us to talk about. So check that all out over at warchant.com. Also, speaking of Ira Schofel, he has an interview with Josh Storms. I think he's director of strength and conditioning, I think is his actual title, strength coach, crazy bearded man. They've invested in some new equipment. Ira is going to let us know what it is. Not so much new equipment, but just more of the stuff that they had. So more is better, how that goes. Glute ham raises. All my dudes who know that the posterior chain is just as important as buys and tries knows the importance of the glute ham raise. So plenty of those will be going on here in Florida State. And finally, before we get to the Renegade Express, big fan of what you and Ira did sitting down with the Gary Jordan fella, talking about the Bowden finding a way. Now, I don't want people to stop listening to this and go watch that, but at some point amidst the remaining stay-at-home stuff, might want to put that on the to-do list to watch Finding a Way, or is it just Find a Way?
I think it's Finding a Way.
All right.
But, yeah, it's Aslan didn't do a great job of explaining what it is, but it's I guess he was working at WFSU at the time?
Correct.
And it was basically he was there for all of the 1985 season. He was on the sidelines. Him and his camera crew were on the sidelines. They were at practice. They were in Thomasville for the coaches' meetings the night before. And it's mostly scenes from the sideline or scenes from the locker room, either pregame, postgame, halftime. But it's really cool. And I meant to bring it up to him, and I didn't. But what I liked about it a lot is that there's not even a ton of context. Like, there's nobody talking over saying, and then Bowden's team went in Auburn.
Yeah, there's no narration.
4-0, and it's basically it throws you into in the middle of the chaos. And as you can imagine, a college football sideline, especially back in the 80s, any time, I don't know why I said that, they can be quite chaotic. There's 130 guys, all brooding masculinity, screaming at each other, screaming at the refs, screaming at the opponents. And Bobby Bowden back then in 1985, I guess he would have been, 50-something, maybe?
Don't make
right?
me do the math.
Is he 90 now?
Close. I think
and that was November? 35 years ago? So, yeah, he'd been like 50. He's in his mid-50s. But I'm telling you, he looks like he's not looks as much as he acts like a 31-year-old. I mean, it is just a whirling dervish, a tornado of movement and talking on the sideline. A lot of it is just kind of like
56, by the way.
So, okay, it was 56 then. Yeah. So, but you saw some of it. He acts like a 30-year-old.
That was great. It was great.
The people that don't remember, and I'm old enough to remember that Bowden. I never stood on a sideline with him when I was 10 or 11 years old. But I remember that Bowden. He wasn't just the grandfather that stood on the 20 and wrote stuff into his notepad without a headset on. He's involved in everything, talking to everyone. And it's really, really neat and kind of eye-opening to see. And what's cool about it is it's 1985. So Deion's a freshman, Odell Hagen's a freshman, Sammy's a freshman, Danny McManus is a sophomore. But it's that class that starts the dynasty a couple years later. And it's those guys, it's that team, and it's kind of it's a burgeoning power, and it's just incredible access. It's just incredible access. You're there when you're talking to referees before the game in Nebraska, in the locker room after they beat Nebraska, on the sideline when Bo Jackson's running crazy, and they think McManus has a concussion, all the way to the Florida game where he's basically calling out his entire team for being babies at halftime when they're down 28-0. It's just
scared of those orange shirts.
Yeah, I know. It's just really illuminating. And I thought it was really cool. And I assume if you guys are listening to this, you're a Florida State fan, most of you. And if you're a Florida State fan, you're probably a Bobby Bowden fan. You haven't seen Bobby Bowden like this. So go watch it. Yeah. And then go watch Ira and I's interview with the guy that put it all together. It's really, really neat.
Yeah, if you're of my vintage, if you're like in that 28 to 35 category.
Are you 28 to 35?
I'm just outside of it, Well, I'm closer to that than I'm the 35 to 50 or
Sure,
like 35
right.
to 45, whatever they use demographic-wise.
Right.
Anyhow, basically, like if you basically just hopped on the wagon around Jameis's time, like, yeah, go back and watch that. Because I'm guilty of it as anybody, where I unfortunately, I don't know, it's like recency bias, but like, you know, I remember the downfall more than the rise.
But even if you remember, like, the late dynasty, he just seemed he wasn't that guy. He wasn't the guy that was in the middle of everything, calling plays. He's 3 steps ahead, saying, "Oh, hey, look, if we don't get this, I want to do a Bowden-Ruski right here. How about a Bowden-Ruski if it's 4th and short? And we want to fake that punt. If we don't pick this up, you want to fake that punt?" It's just he's thinking, unlike maybe some other recent coaches, he's thinking about what would happen if something didn't work out, and he has a plan. And it's just really cool to see that Bobby Bowden. Because, again, even in the late 90s, he was the guy that was, standing off to the sideline. Lynn Swann was interviewing in the middle of a play in the national championship game. But back then in 85, man, that was his program, his team, his offense. It was really, really neat.
If you could only watch one more time in your life, would you watch Finding a Way or Bowden Dynasty?
Ooh, probably the Bowden Dynasty, just because it's the Finding a Way is such a specific moment in time. It's just that one season. Yeah. The Bowden Dynasty, you get to relive all the good stuff.
Indeed. All right, man. Let's get on the ponies. Renegade
and
Express.
Also, real quick, shout out the PK Sam. The War Chat with PK Sam is up and available. You can watch that too. Dude had a lot to say about a very memorable game and a very memorable team. And obviously that play that the all-time play he made at the end of the 2003 Florida game. I thought it was a good one.
It was our Wednesday podcast, Corey. They already listened to it.
Oh, that's right.
But they can also watch it in video form.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
And before we forget, shout out to all the mothers. Happy Mother's Day on the early tip, in case I forget.
Nice. Good job, Aslan.
All right. Did
you get your mom anything?
Yeah, it was funny. She texted me on like Tuesday or something. She's like, please don't get me flowers or an edible arrangement. She said they're all using old flowers and produce. And I'm like, okay. So actually, embarrassingly enough, if you really want to know, I used to buy her these Precious Moments figurines when I was in high school. Like these,
there you go.
You know, so I'm like, oh, and my mom is not a very sentimental lady. God bless her. I mean, I know maybe she just uses all of her compassion at work as a nurse, and when she came home and she had to deal with us, she's like, I'm done. But I love my mother. I'm a mama's boy. But I don't know what happened, dude. I go on the website to find a Precious Moment figurine, and I remember I bought her one that was like a mother holding a little baby, and she loved it so much. Like I can't remember my mom liking a present so much as like that one I gave her when I was like a sophomore in high school. And then I saw another one of like a mother holding her baby up in the air, and like I literally started like tearing up. I don't know why, like all emotional, because I know I'm never going to have a kid, and life sucks. Anyhow,
well,
let's get on the ponies.
Some call them lunchtime lifesavers. Others call them the most perfect sandwiches to ever exist. At Zaxby's, we just call them our signature fan favorites. The Southern TLC Filet Sandwich has hand-breaded chicken with fresh tomato and crisp lettuce. The famous Kickin' Chicken Sandwich features spicy tongue torch and Cool Ranch sauces. And for a limited time, fried pickles are back. 2 classic sandwiches and a legendary appetizer. 3 more reasons you're going to get a kick out of Zaxby's.
Mad AMCZ, wake up! I find myself in the unusual position of being both a Patriots and Bucks fan. Grew up in New England in the 80s, family moved to Florida, became friends with Sean King at Tulane, and the Bucks drafted him, Gibbs High School represent. Became a bigger fan when they drafted Jameis. Now, Brady and Gronk are in Tampa, and my mind is blown. Which team do you think has a better record over the next 2 years? I say 2 years because we simply don't know what's going to happen in 2020 with COVID-19. Who's going to have the better record, the Patriots,
or the Bucks? That's a good question, man.
Man, everything ends at some point. I mean, New England's got to take a step back.
But that's still such a bad. It's still such a bad division.
It is, though. You're right. Yeah. I mean, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen going to walk in there and start lighting him up.
Yeah, man. Like, and they still have a really good defense, right?
Actually, the defense was really good at the first half of last season. Then they kind of fell off a cliff.
Yeah, I would say, man, you got to. I'm fine being wrong on this, but until the Bucks prove they can like have a winning season and get to the playoffs, I'm going to take the Patriots, even though you've you've lost your quarterback, and the other team got him. Brady wasn't great last year. Now he's going to have a lot more weapons.
Yeah.
But
he's not going to have an offensive line. He won't have an offensive line.
Yeah,
James never had an offensive line.
Yeah, I know, our running game or all that.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works out for him.
Yeah, it's tough to bet against Belichick, but I like how you took a shot at Tampa, though, like they've never won a Super Bowl or anything.
I didn't mean that. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Was that the last time they were in the playoffs?
No, I think 2005.
No, that can't be.
2005 or 6 or something like that. I think they were in the.
But it's been a long time.
Oh, it has. No, it has. It has. Yeah, they won 10 games one year, but it wasn't enough to get into the playoffs. I think it was like Raheem Morris's second season with Josh Freeman. They did win 10 games, but it was just one of those seasons where they weren't able to make it to the playoffs. Can I wax poetic real quick about my sort of quasi hometown in Tampa? The last time Tampa hosted the Super Bowl I think it was 2009 calendar year. It was after the 2008 season. It was Steelers and Cardinals, but it was right kind of in the teeth of the Great Recession and the whole housing crisis. Plus, it was the Cardinals on one half. So I remember being so stoked for the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl was there in 90, like during Desert Storm, Whitney Houston, Bills, Giants, first, missed kick, Norwood. So, like, I could actually really embrace it this time, and I was old enough to go out and drink and go to the bars in 2009, obviously. But I just remember it just did not feel electric, like the way I thought a Super Bowl would. And then now Tampa's going to host a Super Bowl here in 9 months. And it's like, man, fingers crossed, hopefully, because I always told people, I'm like, man, I think the NFL owes Tampa. Like, Tampa got stuck with a horrible situation that time around with the Super Bowl, and then now it's our turn again, and who knows what's going to happen and how many people are going to be able to show up. Matt AMCZ does mention the running game. He says, do you think the Bucs screwed up again by passing on Cam Akers as they already passed on Dalvin? I do. I hope you and Corey get to see each other soon in person and have a nice, loving hug. Go Noles.
A warm embrace.
I do, too.
The thing with who'd they draft instead of Dalvin? They drafted 2 guys, I guess. They drafted O.J. Howard, maybe? And then I think they had another draft pick before Dalvin was actually a lot of people passed on Dalvin.
Yeah.
Because I guess, obviously running backs don't get taken that high anyway, except for, I guess, McCaffrey and Fournette, but in that year. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I think Cam Akers is going to be really good, but I also think just watching what happened to Devontae Freeman and a lot of other running backs in recent years, these teams just kind of chew them up and spit them out.
Absolutely.
I hope that doesn't happen to Cam. I hope Cam's in the league for a decade. But, Devontae Freeman was great for about 1.5 years or 2 years. Really good. But then your body takes such a beating, man, and then these teams got no use for you. And it's not like an old-timers day, and they're not going to keep you on the roster just because you were good 2 years ago. If you can't produce, you're gone. Look at Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
I mean, the way these teams treat running backs. But anyway, that being said, I think they view them almost as interchangeable. Like, who's the best running back that Tom Brady's ever played with?
Corey Dillon.
Yeah, right. Did they even win it that year? They might have won one with him, but yeah, he's never been a guy that I know. The James White or whoever that was had a bunch of catches against the Falcons in the Super Bowl, but he's just throwing swing passes to him. So yeah, I don't know. I just think running backs. I think Cam Akers. I think Dalvin Cook wound up being a better draft pick than O.J. Howard. But, Dalvin Cook's only had one healthy year, fully. And how many more can you count on him for? Just because of the nature of the position, not because he's injury-prone or not tough or anything. It's just the nature of the position.
Dalvin went second round, 41st overall. And I've always said this, so I think I goofed up. I always thought they drafted Ronald Jones from Southern Cal, Tampa, that is, before Dalvin went off the board. But no, Dalvin went off the board first.
Was Ronald Jones even drafted that year?
I don't think he was drafted that year.
Maybe they didn't draft him because they had Ronald Jones already?
Maybe. They had O.J. Howard that year, first round. So.
Did they have another draft after? Did they have another pick?
No, they went 19th overall, and then they went 50th overall. So
yeah.
I mean, let's see some of these great guys that went ahead of Dalvin Cook. Forrest Lamp, a guard for the Chargers. That's not fair. Zay Jones for Buffalo. I think he might. I saw him as being someone that's probably going to get cut here soon. Malik McDowell, who was committed to Florida, and I was committed to Florida State, but that was a big battle between Florida State and Michigan State. And he went crazy in Seattle, had an ATV accident on top of it, and Reuben Foster went 31st. I thought that was going to be a really good pick for the 49ers, but nothing really worked out good with him. Tack McKinley, they said they're not going to pick up his 5th year.
Right.
Jabril Peppers. Has Jabril Peppers been a good pro?
Yeah, I mean, I think he starts, but I don't know that he's been anything incredible.
He's on the Browns, though. But, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Dalvin's got like 2 years left, really. I mean, sadly, to make it happen. And he's got to get through an entire season first.
How high do you think Peppers would have been drafted if he had played in that Orange Bowl?
Oh, I mean, top
Because,
10.
he didn't play.
I know.
And Michigan probably wins that game by 40 points if he plays.
We're lucky,
Maybe
man.
50. Florida State might not even taken the field.
We are lucky. Let me see here. And then Tampa took Antoine Winfield Jr. before Cam went off the board. Yeah. I think they needed some help in the secondary, so I won't fault them too much for taking Antoine Winfield Jr. But, yeah, I think Cam's going to be real good. And I just don't know, like, who's the outlier now. I just hope he has I hope he has 5 good years. Like, I don't know if that's asking for the world these days, which is terrible, man. But whatever his prime is as a running back, I think it's going to be fruitful. I think it's.
And then you have to do you have to work out the equation in your head. Like, is it better to have? And I just keep coming back to O.J. Howard because that's who they drafted. Is it? And say he was. I don't even know if he's still on the team. Is he still on Tampa?
Yeah, he is. He is.
So is it better to have 9 okay years of O.J. Howard or 3 great years of Dalvin Cook?
That's fair.
I don't know. My personal thinking is that Dalvin Cook. I think to me O.J. Howard looks just like a guy. He's okay.
Yeah.
He's nothing special.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook could be special, but only for 3 years. Maybe you get like a LaDainian Tomlinson type production, but only for a 3-year stretch instead of a decade. To me, that would be worth it, as opposed to a 9-year guy that's just kind of okay, just kind of an everyman. I'm going to catch 38 balls and have 5 touchdowns.
You got to stick it. If you're going to take a tight end in the top 20 picks, he's got to be a Gronk. But Gronk didn't even – I think Gronk was a second-round guy. I mean, You think about Antonio Gates was like an undrafted free agent where he went really late because he didn't even really play football. Who's the guy that had a pretty good run for the Broncos? Julius something? He's a guy that went late in the rounds. Yeah, man, it's just, Tony Gonzalez's aren't out there like first-round picks that are just going to, end up being a Hall of Famer. That pick hurts. So does, the second-round pick they had.
The guy,
well,
I mean, and tight ends can obviously be game changers. The guy at the Kansas City guy, Kelsey's.
Yeah, Travis Kelce.
Really good. And so, and the 49ers, who is that dude?
George Kittle? I don't
Holy
know, man.
crap.
He's awesome.
I don't know where he came from, but he's incredible too.
Iowa, buddy, Iowa.
Yeah, so I'm not saying like running backs are more important than tight ends necessarily, but an okay tight end that you have for a decade to me isn't worth a great running back for 3 or 4 years.
Kelsey was
what
what
Dalvin could do, that's crazy too.
George Kittle was a 5th-round pick.
Man, that's nuts, man. So maybe tight ends are going to become the way of the running backs, where you just like, hey, we'll just find one. We might get lucky with one.
Right.
But yeah, man, those tight ends are, those two especially are really, really impressive, man. And Gronk too. I mean, how do you match up with these guys? They're 6'6", 260, and can run. Like, what are you supposed to do?
I know, man. Yeah, I think of all that. I mean, it was just all in on Jameis. We're just going to give this guy every possible weapon he can have, and it was the right sentiment.
Yeah, but you wonder if Dalvin would have been a better weapon. Although he wouldn't have. I mean, I guess you don't know. You don't know how injuries are going to work. Right. But O.J. Howard's probably had more production, I guess you could say, in the last 3 years than Dalvin Cook, only because Dalvin missed half of the games.
Oh no!
But I can promise you, the 2019 Bucks would have been better with Dalvin Cook than they were with O.J. Howard. That seems like an automatic. I mean, just on swing passes alone, just getting that guy in space would have been a huge help for them.
Gator 188. I don't know what that's all about. Wake up, fellas. Thanks for all you do for FSU sports and to keep fans informed. 2 questions, if you please, even though the second one was added after listening to the SEC football discussion you all had the other day. Number 1, who do you believe is the greatest player from the Tidewater, Virginia 757 area code to play for the Seminoles? E.J. Manuel, Josh Sweat, Derek Nottie, Levante Taylor, Kalen Laburn, or Tommy Martin?
I mean, I think EJ.
Nottie?
I think EJ has to be that answer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he won 4 bowl games.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't a spectacular quarterback, but he was still a first-round pick at quarterback and led you to 12 wins his last season. 2 of the losses you had in the year before when he didn't play or was hurt. So, yeah, I'd say EJ.
I keep thinking about, like, NFL career. Derek's doing pretty good for himself.
He has, man. Got himself a ring, too, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
That's right. Number 2 question. No ACC football, and if the SEC plays football, why not have FSU be a non-conference opponent for these schools? There are 14 teams in the SEC to choose from. We could get a full schedule. It would take us back to the Bowden days of playing anyone, anytime, anywhere. Yeah. Maybe that would reignite the Nole swagger. Keep up the awesome work. Go Noles.
Thank you for that. And, yeah, that's you brought up Swarbrick saying that all these teams could have the SEC or somebody could have all conference games and plus 1 non-conference game.
Yeah.
Well, Florida State could just be the plus 1 for every SEC team.
Yeah. Give us your money.
You get Auburn. You get well, you probably don't want Alabama. Let's be honest. You get Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, Vanderbilt,
Georgia. Come on, come get some. Kirby.
And I think you do the Mississippi schools. Let's not go crazy. I was going to say A&M, but you don't want that either.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do. You make sure Vanderbilt, and Kentucky for sure. Both Mississippi schools. You already got Florida, so that's 5, and then maybe South Carolina too. They used to play them in the '80s. I think it should be any team they played in the '80s.
Bring it back. At
some point, they go back. So you're talking Auburn. You're talking about South Carolina. Not Georgia. Well, they played Georgia in a Citrus Bowl, so you can go there. Florida. Yeah, so that's how you do it. I don't know. The Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they didn't play back then, but I think you definitely got to add those 2 because you need some wins.
But, like, are we on the road for all these games? Like,
doesn't matter, Aslan. Doesn't matter.
Anytime, anywhere, anyone?
Anytime. Yeah, man. So for the people that don't know, it was crazy. I don't know that he set up the schedule. I think he used to always joke that he wouldn't have taken the job at Florida State if he knew what the schedule was in store. But in 1981, I got to look this up to make sure, but in 1981 they had 5 consecutive road games, which was at Pitt when Pitt was incredible, at Nebraska, at Ohio State, at Notre Dame, and at LSU. Something like that. Those were the 5 games in a row, all on the road.
You ready?
Yeah, do it.
At number 17, Nebraska.
They lost that game. Wait, hold on. They lost that game, right?
34-14.
Okay.
At number 7, Ohio State.
They won that game.
36-27.
There you go.
At Notre Dame.
They won that game.
19-13. At number 3, Pitt.
Did not go well, I don't think.
It did not. 42-14.
Yeah.
At LSU.
Yeah, and then that didn't go well.
Yeah, it did. They won 38-14.
They did? Are you sure?
Yeah.
So they went 3-2?
Yeah. Oktoberfest, right?
Yeah, it's called Oktoberfest. And then they came back, and did they lose 2 straight when they got back home? Is that what happened? I know Southern Miss beat the absolute tar out of them.
They beat Western Carolina after the LSU game and then dropped games to number 13 Miami and number 14 Southern Miss. The Southern Miss
What was
game
that Southern Miss score?
58-14.
So I think that's the most points they've ever. That was the most points they'd ever given up until Clemson rolled through in a couple years ago. But what I remember about that game, God, it's crazy. I just remembered this. So I was 6 years old. Florida State back then.
6 years old.
Florida State back then didn't come on TV a lot, at all. Like I vaguely remember going to some sports bar that had because we lived in Atlanta, that somehow had the Notre Dame game on the radio. We could listen like a CB, I don't know, a shortwave radio. I don't know how they would even do it. But so they were these Florida State fans in this bar listening to a game on the radio like we were in the 30s listening to a Joe Louis fight. And I was there with my dad because he had me on the weekends. So, and I just remember walking out of there, they were all happy. But then I remember that Southern Miss game. We went to one of his buddies' house. We're going to watch the game, and I'm a kid. I probably have a coloring book or something, but I'm excited to watch the game too. And it was the day that like the space shuttle had to make an emergency landing in like White Sands, New Mexico or something. So they kept cutting out of the game. And again, Florida State was on national TV like once a year. So we were all upset that they kept cutting away from the game. And every time they would return to the game, Southern Miss had scored another 2 touchdowns. It was 14-0 when they tuned in. We go away for a second. They come back 15 minutes later. It's 28-0. They go away again to give us an update or show it landing or talk to Sally Ride or somebody. And then we come back and it's 42-0. And my dad's like, what is going on? this can't be right. Because Southern Miss wasn't supposed to be that good. But anyway, that's a story I remember. And then they got the tar kicked out of them. I guess the Oktoberfest took a lot out of them because they got killed by Southern Miss, and then they got killed by Florida at the end of the year, like 35-3.
Correct.
Right?
Look at you.
Yeah.
Good grief, man.
Yeah, that was it. Because if they won that game, they would have played in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. It was basically whoever won the Florida State game was going to play in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta that year, back when not everybody went to bowls. And so my dad had already bought Peach Bowl tickets. And then Florida won 35-3, so we ended up going to the game anyway. And cheering for whoever Florida played.
Trying to look up this White Sands thing.
Is that right? I couldn't have made that up. There's no way I dreamed that.
I can't
right?
find anything about an emergency
White
landing
Plains?
made. No,
White Plains is in New York, right?
White Sands is a literal NASA thing. I just can't find anything with like a fall date in 1981 behind it. But
Space Shuttle Columbia landing 1981. I'm going to try White Sands and see if that comes up.
all right, I'll read the next question. Thanks, Gator188. Good job. Maxwell Gibbs, wake up, gentlemen. He doesn't say gentlemen. He calls me by my name, and he calls you that nickname that you don't like.
Right. Thank you.
Really enjoyed this week's episode of War Chat with Gene, Corey, and PK Sam. Again, he doesn't call you Corey. He calls you the other name. It was great being able to relive that game so much that I decided to give a call to a friend of mine, of my dad's actually. I gave a call to a friend of my dad and reminded him of that game. That friend, by the way, wait for it, is a man by the name of Ron Zook.
Oh, all
Look
right.
at that. So Maxwell's dad is friends with Ron Zook. When Cam Akers becomes the next former Nole running back to tear it up in the league, do you think it's more likely that Texas A&M or Florida Atlantic puts him in a graphic highlighting how each of their coaches can get their players in the league?
Well said.
I can see. Yeah,
Hey,
Jimbo
so
would
Wick,
do
can
it.
you look up, did the landing take place? I'm sorry, Maxwell, we're going to have to go back, and I'm going to answer I'll listen to the question. Did the Southern Miss game happen on November 14th?
Yeah.
So that was the Space Shuttle Columbia just landing. Oh, so the planned 5-day mission was cut nearly 3 days due to failure of one of 3 fuel cells that produce electricity and drinking water. So why would they cut in to just show? I guess that was that might have been that was only the second space shuttle ever. So maybe it was always big news when it landed.
Yeah.
But I just remember the news cutting in, the national news cutting in to show a space shuttle landing. But no, it was at Edwards Air Force Base in California, so it wasn't White Sands. So I've been living a lie this whole time.
Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to set the record straight. So we just did.
We did. So I didn't dream that at
No,
least. So what was the question? I'm sorry, Maxwell.
Just it was a funny tongue-in-cheek thing. It really wasn't serious, I don't think. Just basically,
okay.
is Jimbo or Willie going to use Cam in marketing?
Oh, I did hear
recruiting
it.
marketing.
Yeah, Willie definitely will, for sure. Like that's his running. He had him for 2 years. Jimbo only had him for 1. Now there's probably both of them could. Like this is because he was Jimbo's recruit.
Will Walt Bell at UMass?
Walt Bell made him who he was.
Well, Kendall in Arkansas.
How many people are gonna? What do you call that when you like when the puppies all go to the mom?
Suckling on the teat?
So yeah, how many of them are going to suckle? All those coaches are going to suckle.
I can't listen. Somebody, Maxwell, you're responsible for this. It's your question. Remind us in September to look up Walt Bell's bio on UMass. I'm sure they'll do an up-to-date season refresh, and we'll see if it says, was offensive coordinator at Florida State in 2018 where he coached future second-rounder Cam Akers or helped groom Cam Akers. Because
Kendall will have it too.
Yeah, they all do it. All right, gentlemen, if games are played this fall, Maxwell continues, without fans, do you expect that this could be a competitive advantage for Manny Diaz and the Canes? After all, they're used to games in mostly empty stadiums. There's something to be said about that.
It's a real advantage. It's like
you train in the environment you're going to be in, and they've been in this environment for 13 years.
It's like Boston College basketball playing a tournament game with 1,100 people in it because they're so used to it. I do think that's part of the reason so many teams struggle playing Boston College at Boston. I mean, it's hard to win on the road anyway, but you're not used to playing in front of 900 fans. It's a weird environment. It's a weird feeling. So, yeah, BC would have an advantage in basketball. I can see Miami having a little bit of an advantage, sure.
Speaking of Miami and Manny, I'm predicting a flop of a season for him. Finishes at 6-6, but due to the sudden financial struggles, he'll be retained. He will not be fired. Oh, and I'm not done just yet. All capitals. All caps he types here. Isaiah Walker, come on up to Tallahassee, big guy. Don't worry, Willie isn't anywhere near here anymore, and Mike Norvell isn't going to lie to you like Dan Mullen. He's an offensive lineman. I think it was pretty good. Committed. He's in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So,
4-star guy, right?
Yeah. Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at
hey, man,
you,
I'm all over
Nick.
it. I'm all over it.
Recruit Nick Clark. Turntoll lives. Wake up. If they decline to allow fans in the stands, I'm still going to tailgate. Unfortunately, I'm worried about drinking games that limit exposure to coronavirus. Right now, I'm trying to design a socially distanced beer pong. Here's my idea. Each person would be assigned a ball. You would use water with some Dawn detergent in the cups. Additionally, the table would be 8 feet in length. Now, instead of the opposition picking your ball out of the cup, after your turn, you simply switch sides. Moment of truth. Would you play? I'm not a beer pong guy. I'm more of a flip cup guy, personally.
No, I'm more of a beer pong guy. I haven't played it in a while, obviously, but no, I would do that. Yeah, that makes sense. You just switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, like I've talked about with handshakes and hugs and how they're probably a way of the past anyway, the way of the dodo. I feel like beer pong, when you don't do that, is probably the way of the dodo. Like, what's the point? Why? It's not hard to just walk around to the other side of the ping pong table. So that's going to be the way that people grow up playing beer pong from here on out. You throw it into that cup, and then you go and drink it. Or he comes and drinks the cup with his own ball in it. You have to bring your own balls, obviously.
BYOB.
But that's life, isn't it? That's life.
It is. All right. Random_John. Good morning to both you fine gentlemen. While testing numbers are increasing, it feels we are still miles away from the minimum amount needed to consider things, at a minimum, adequate. If we reach minimum standards of testing to allow games to be played, how effective do you feel stadium security can be attempting to enforce rules? Wow,
Man,
you got all serious on me there.
Yeah, and
John.
that's the one, when you talk about the one drawback to that kind of stuff is who is going to police it. Like I'd rather 20,000 fans be in there than 0, or just parents. But who's going to police it? And when you do try to police it, and maybe you're talking to someone who's a little belligerent, or thinks the whole thing is a hoax or overblown, or is drunk, is it going to get out of control? Is he going to spit on you?
Yeah.
And then what happens? That's where I think there could be a concern. But I don't know. I would rather try that than. But yes, you're going to have to somehow beef up security, or I don't know.
Well, maybe if you have such a limited amount of fans, you'll know who's in each seat. They're either going to be boosters or they're going to resell them on the market on StubHub, and you'll know the name of the person who bought those tickets. And if there's an altercation in those seats that's reported, they flash those numbers at pro football games all the time now. Text pound 4155 if there's somebody in your section that's doing something crazy. Maybe they could do that so it's a kind of punitive thing where they can then ban you from the stadium if it comes down to that.
Yeah. And you could also move. There should be a lot of empty seats.
Yeah. I've seen things where obviously none of this is ideal at all, but hopefully there's some sort of good that can come about it. I saw something about, I think maybe the Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins are one of the first franchises that have kind of unveiled their plan for how they want fans to attend games in a limited capacity. And just think about leaving your seat to go to a concession stand. They want to make it now to where you can order on your phone. I think that's kind of how they've been doing in the Champions Club. But even us common folk can go on your phone and order nachos, and then they'll bring it to your seat. So that way you're not having to stand in line and bump into people and things of that. So Maybe I would think that, listen, if you're going to come to a football game, I guess it probably does cut both ways. If you're going to come to a football game, you're going to be there and you want to be able to enjoy it and not cause a problem. So hopefully you'll be on your best behavior. But then I guess on the flip side of that is, listen, I just drove 8 hours. Don't tell me what to do. I paid, $75 to watch this game. Get out of my face. But hopefully that's lesser of it. What do you think is going to happen to ticket prices, Corey? I know we're not the economist. We're not, economists, you and I, by trade. But I wonder, are season tickets going to still be the same amount of money? Like, are they going to have to charge more since there's less people, supply and demand, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think, honestly, weirdly, if say we have it where you can sell out 25% of your stadium. So that's, what is that at Florida State? Exactly 20,000?
Sure, I don't know. Don't make me.
Let's just round it to 20,000. Well, if number one, if Florida State ends up being pretty good, and you have Clemson and Florida coming to town, well, yeah, that should drive up the demand pretty high. You might have 50 or 60,000 people wanting those 20,000 tickets. So yeah, I think you could maybe double the prices, maybe
25% of 78,000. Which I think Doak is somewhere in the range of 78,000.
It is 19,412.
Well, 19,500 I was going to round up, but yeah.
What is it?
19,500. So pretty much on the nose.
Oh, that's the exact number. Okay, yeah, there you go. Sorry.
So, he goes on, second graph. I have heard you two talk about testing players, but how are they going to police the crowds, and how will they be able to execute those plans? Assuming the goal will be to limit crowding and the spread of the virus, what if fans are supposed to sit apart but still gather together? What if it rains and fans gather under the bleachers? Are concessions a thing of the past? If security starts to break up the crowd, what if the crowd gets unruly and starts screaming about their rights? To me, from a distance, I can see how a few bad apples can really ruin things. How can universities, and especially FSU, police such dissidents in a crowded stadium? Even if it is only half full, that's still 40,000-ish people. Logistically, I don't like it. Those are all fair things, man. But
especially the first part, though, where he says, "How can you can't test the crowd. The people that come to football games, and the people that associate with people that go to football games, you're assuming a risk. Just you have to understand that. It's not like, if you open up. Just because Georgia opened up all these restaurants doesn't mean that I've driven past them. They're not slammed. They're not falling out of the onto the streets because they're so slammed. I just think you have to be, they're adults, and adults make those decisions. And if you choose to go to a football game, you're assuming a risk. So no, they can't be tested. If you're sick, if you're coughing, don't go. If somebody around you starts coughing, don't go. Don't let anybody you know that has any type of symptoms go to a game. But otherwise, for 2 years, you might be playing games in front of empty stadiums. You know what I mean?
Is Shanna, who could have been the first lady of Wake Up Warchant, but
she blew it, didn't she? She really blew it.
Way to play the long game on that one. Do you think Shanna and Brady will be attending a game this season?
I don't know. That's a good question. As long as they get the seat in that top row, so nobody's coughing on their neck, I think they're fine. No, I really don't know. I don't think so. She didn't renew her season tickets, not yet anyway.
Well, don't throw her under the bus like that.
Well, I mean, who has? Why would anybody right now?
You got to love your university. It's your civic. You got to step up right now.
Until you're guaranteed that there's a season to be had, why would you do that? So. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they'd come or not, but if they did, I would not necessarily be a huge fan of that. Although obviously the kids are less likely to get it or have bad symptoms than adults for whatever reason. But I would tell her to be safe. Obviously, keep a safe distance. If people get too close, scoot away. But I just think if you're going to worry just about what happens to the crowd that comes to your event, I don't know that that's necessarily the place of Florida State to say, well, we don't want to hold this event because we're worried about the crowd. Well, let the crowd worry about the crowd. The people, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that you can just say we're completely not letting people into this unless we all get tested. Because then no sporting events for the next year and a half, in my opinion, maybe the next year, will have people at them.
Well, yeah, it's like, when are you going to get tested? You get tested on Monday, and then what's to say that
Right.
you're not going to catch it between then and the time you go to the game? So it's not practical at all. But I do think you can't let the inmates run the asylum. You can't be like, all right, man, you all know what you're in for. You know what we're living with. Follow these rules, please. I mean, I think there has to be probably
no,
really.
I'm not saying like open it up so 80,000 people can get there.
But even
I'm saying if you're an adult, like I have a problem with like if you bring like a 14-year-old that doesn't have a say in it. But if you're an adult making an adult decision and you're around other adults who are hopefully making adult decisions, you can't be in a bubble. And I don't think Florida State's liable if you're trying to establish guidelines and you only have 20,000 seats sold and you're not just opening it up for everybody to come in, then that's if somebody gets sick, it's awful. It sucks. But that's also life now.
Maybe they can make it like a smoking, non-smoking section. Like they can make sections maybe that are really going to be strictly enforced, maybe elderly friendly, not to be ageist or anything like that. But maybe they can make certain sections where it's like, listen, like we're going to have 10 security guards in this section, and if we see you violating it, you're going to get one warning. And if I hate giving people plastic badges and letting them bully people around, but then I also hate a person that's making $10 an hour having to, tell a drunk person to leave. But yeah, I mean, I think you can maybe have certain levels of, fandom, if you will. Like, listen, I mean, some people listen, and I get it. Like, I stood up every time I've been at a football game. I always stand up the entire time. Some people don't like that. They want you to sit down. I get that. Maybe they can have it to where there's certain sections where, yeah, man, like, listen, if you just want to be able to go and watch and enjoy your favorite team play a football game, you don't have to worry about drunk people like getting in your space. Like, we're going to make this a very sort of stringent, strict area so that people can relax and have the peace of mind if they're concerned about it. And these other sections, you do have to, obey the laws and the regulations, but maybe they won't be as cracking the whip on things. Because I do think about, just think about how many people go to a game when it's just them and their buddy. And then there's people that got 6 people they go with. And so, like, how do you kind of configure a stadium and the scene where it's like, we're going to make this, like, this row will have, we can put those 3 people. It's going to be, like I made that analogy a few weeks ago. It's going to be setting your wedding seating arrangement on steroids if you did it that way.
And how do you, all the restaurants are going to be open by then, unless we've hit a horrible peak and we all go into shutdown mode again. All the restaurants are going to be open by then. Some people that go into the restaurant that you're dining in think the whole thing is a complete hoax. Yeah. And they literally laugh at people that wear masks, which you might agree with them. That's fine. But there are people in restaurants that are going to be doing that. So, of course, there are going to be people in football games that do that. And if you're allowed to go to a restaurant, you should be allowed to go into a football game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can get more sick in a restaurant. You're in an enclosed building. It would make no sense to have restaurants open, golf courses open, barbershops open, bars open, clubs open, and not have stadiums open. It just doesn't compute. Everybody's taking a little bit of a risk, assuming a bit of a risk when they go out in public right now. And that should include, in my opinion, stadiums. As long as you establish some sort of guidelines. It would be crazy to me that in September they're playing football games in completely empty stadiums, but I can go into my favorite bar and watch the game on TV with 100 people. That would be, or 80 people, whatever 25% of the capacity is. That to me is nuts. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Man, listen to Corey. We're not playing football in an empty stadium. Come on, America.
I mean, I'm all for. I'd rather an empty stadium than no football. But I don't understand why one would be considered more. I know it's more people, but you're also outdoors. Well, unless you're in a dome, you know what I mean. Most people are outdoors, and you're letting people make grown-up decisions for themselves when it comes to every other walk of life, except apparently school and sporting events. And where are we going to be in September? People can still fly. Are we testing everybody that gets on a flight? No. So, anyway, this show's been too long. I'm tired of this virus, man. I'm tired of it. It's making me crazy.
I can tell.
My beard is jet black, Aslan. It's jet black.
Oh, we got 2 more. Backwoods Hick Nole. Wake to the up.
Hey, I'm going to send you a picture of my beard, by the way. Keep going.
You want me to post it on the Wake Up Warchant Twitter?
No, you don't do anything with it, but I'm going to send you the picture.
Appreciate that. Thanks. # exclusive. Here's a possibly stupid question. No, don't say that. Here's a question. What about holding classes online like they're doing with everything else? Would that be enough to get the athlete-student on the field, or would the students actually have to be on campus? The news I'm hearing on sports, I'm not sure how to take it. I think if they play and someone gets seriously sick and dies from it, that will be that for a long time, but that's just me. Yeah, I mean, they're doing classes online, Backwoods Hicknall. I mean, they've been doing it since spring break in March, so it's gonna continue. The question is how many face-to-face classes will they have? They're talking about if you take like a Tuesday, Thursday class, half of you actually, I guess, go to class on Tuesday, and then the other half go on Thursday, and then if it's not your day to attend the actual classroom instruction, I guess you would go online. So they're trying to figure it out with a certain mix of online and face-to-face stuff. Yeah, if that were to happen, if someone were to die from it, that's gonna be it's got to be a wrap, I would think. But again, I don't want to get into the science of everything because we're not scientists. But I think Corey, you've mentioned it a couple times where if somebody gets sick, you can't just shut the whole. Let's say someone just gets sick, someone's symptomatic. Or not even symptomatic. Let's say they're asymptomatic, but they test negative in week 3. Like, what do you do? Does the whole team?
You mean test positive?
Test positive. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, does the team? Do you shut it down?
No.
To which,
you
like,
test,
no, you can't
test
do that.
Everyone.
Right. Hopefully, the capacity is there. But yeah, I do wonder, like, if there's some sort of crazy outbreak on your team where 20 of your guys don't have it, like, would a coach be like, man, like I don't want to go out there with only 60 players.
Maybe, but you would. I could understand that, but you treat it like Florida State in the 07 Music City Bowl.
Yeah, there you
just
go.
Play whoever you got, man.
Creighton Yarborough, let's go.
But again, like I was just looking at, no, he was 2009. He started in the Miami game. He might have started in that 07 game too, but my man started. He was the starting defensive end at Florida State in 09.
Jody
today,
Allen knows what's up.
Thursday. We're recording this on a Thursday. We had 319,000 tests, the most we've ever had in a single day in this country. And the positive rate was only 9%. So all the stuff I was saying, by the way, about people making their own decisions and going to games and going to bars and watching games, it all has to happen with tests. You can't. There's no way you're going to play college football players if they haven't all been tested. You can't do that. You can't. I don't think it would be. I think you would be liable. Number one, you'd open yourself up for incredible lawsuits if one of the players on your team got their grandmom sick. You can't do that. So you have to be able to test all those players. That was the assumption I was making when I was going on that rant. But I was going to say something not along with this because we kind of already answered this earlier. I think about the online classes and still, but. What I wonder about is, are these stadiums going to enforce some sort of age limit where if you're over 65, you can't come?
No way.
I don't know.
Way.
I don't. But they're the ones that are the most susceptible by a large percentage.
Well, then you put them in a certain section of the stadium to where,
I'm not saying they should do that. I'm saying for these stadiums, if they open back up,
if you don't have the common courtesy to stay away from an elderly person, like if you're going to get close, if you're going to break social distancing with someone who's elderly, like, man, go take a hike, man. Go kick rocks with no socks. Like, get the hell out of the stadium. I hope that person gets a lifetime.
Go take a long walk on a short pier.
I like to say a short cliff, but then people are like, well, if it's a short cliff, it's not going to hurt. It's like, well, I'm not saying like short as in long or tall. I'm just saying that the actual cliff. It's not a long runway.
Yeah, when you have to explain it, it's already lost it. So stick with the long walk on a a pier.
I don't like that. You're going to fall in water. Water's comfortable. Craig Yarborough started the first 3 games of the 2009 season and the finale, Bobby Bowden's finale against West Virginia.
Oh, there you go. Nice. So, senior day.
Yeah. He played in – he was Nole fans got him here as playing in – he was on the roster in 2007, 2008, 2009, but it looks like he – recorded no stats in 2007 or 8. But then year 3, ready to rock. Miami, line up, buddy. Yep. Make it happen. In closing, Backwoods Hick Nole says, I hate to deliver the news after hyping it up so much last week, but Zaxby's is no longer serving those incredible onion rings. I almost cried. But
man.
The Zack Club sandwich was incredible. And I got fried pickles instead. As with everything on the menu, indescribably good. Thanks, y'all, for keeping me entertained when there's very little out there that still does.
You got it, buddy.
We're trying. All right, here we go. Last one. FSU Robert, wake up! Thanks for what y'all do, as always. Thank you, Robert. Namaste.
Thanks, Robert.
Regarding NIL, that is name, image, and likeness, is there any further discussion on what Gene was talking about the other day with a royalty system that's more equitable? I'm personally all for anything that puts cash in the hands of students, particularly those who come from impoverished backgrounds. Better if it comes from some rich person or big business, no matter how ugly or disruptive. But I was hoping for something that was less focused on what an individual athlete can gain and more focused on spreading around cash for an essentially uncompensated labor force. Value, quote unquote, of the scholarship, at least in football, is blah, blah, blah as far as I'm concerned. Those kids earn everything they're, quote unquote, given. Where is the discussion right now regarding implementation? Can you picture collective bargaining working its way into the picture? They tried. Remember that guy from Northwestern, the quarterback, did that?
Yeah, but that was just for actually getting paid, like a salary. This is for, I assume you can have an agent. You can have an agent to make these deals for you.
Yeah, you can.
So I think what will happen, is that, like I talked about, I think the NCAA or somehow the NCAA or these conferences are going to try to put a cap on what you're allowed to earn for one of these commercials or billboards or whatever, and I think that's when that's when there could be lawsuits or some sort of agreement. There certainly could be collusion, but I think there could be some sort of agreement then. It's going to be a really, like we talked about, I don't quite even know where I stand on it, to be honest with you. I like the thought of them. I like the thought of someone like Dalvin Cook or Cam Akers being able to make a lot of money or some money because they're the most famous person in the city or one of them. And they should be allowed to, if they were a chemistry student that discovered a vaccine, they would make millions of dollars off their name and likeness. But because they're a football player, they're not allowed to make anything. I don't think that's necessarily fair. If another student can make money off their name and likeness, then a football player, a basketball player should too. But Gene's worry is, rightly, that's going to lead to talking to the 17-year-old junior quarterback from, Pahokee High School. Hey man, you come to Florida State. We already got a deal lined up for you where you can get $600,000 a year for one commercial. Even though the going rate in Tallahassee is probably $30,000 per an ad, we're going to pay you $600,000 to be in our commercial. And by the way, Warchant is offering that to anyone listening to this show who happens to be a 5-star offensive lineman.
Yeah.
What is that enough? Is $600 enough, you think?
Yeah. If you want to voice our open, from Tally to Cali or whatever we say.
You do that, obviously, and then we film you at your computer or on your phone reading Warchant. You talk to the camera and say how much you love Warchant. Corey's your favorite. Ira's pretty good, too. Whatever the pitch is, and then that's $600,000, my man. That's all you got to do.
Piece of cake.
But not 4 stars. You got to do whatever it takes to get that 5th star. We're not doing this. This is the 5-star challenge we're doing. This is for 5 stars. But yeah, I do think that's obviously it is a very, very slippery. It's not even a slippery slope. It's just pure ice. That we don't know how this thing is going to end. But still, it's all shady. It's all been shady. At least now some of it can be above the table.
Well, the thing is, it's name, image, and likeness. So I don't know how you're going to spread around the money. It's going to be an individual thing. Like Marvin came like, hey, I got us $275,000. We're all going to get a cut of this. It's my name. It's my image.
That's socialism.
It's my likeness. Yeah,
exactly. That's socialism.
Don't cash that stimulus check. Don't you dare cash that stimulus check unless you're a socialist.
That's right. And don't collect Social Security either. But yeah, so that's why I was wondering. Like for that, I just don't think you can because, frankly, I get what he's saying that all these guys should get some, but the vast majority of them aren't marketable. Yeah. They're not good enough, especially at Florida State the last couple of years. But Marvin Wilson is, and if he wants to go to Zaxby's and and talk about how good their chicken is, then I don't think that necessarily name someone. Emmett Rice should that's who we come up with. That's the fallback. Then Emmett Rice should get us some of that money. I think that's Marvin's money. He's the best player. He's earned that.
Oh gosh, I hope Emmett Rice wins the freaking
butt kiss.
The butt kiss. Yeah, just positions himself as the great one.
Hey, I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, I mean, the value of the scholarship. I don't know. There's just so many. Dude, just imagine being a football player at Florida State when things are going good. Every bar you go to, you're getting let in front of everybody. I mean, there's so much. The world opens up to you. Like, even after your career, obviously, which is a really important thing. But just think about, like, those, you're 18 to 21. Like, the world is your oyster because you're on scholarship at Florida State. And you can't put a price tag on that, but...
well, yeah, you can. There's been one.
Yeah, apparently. All right. All right, we're done, Corey. We're going to come back next week and do this all over again. But we don't even know what the Warchant game is going to be, so that's a good little sort of tease. So come back on Monday.
It's going to be a surprise. For right now, it's a surprise to me. So we'll definitely have something lined up though.
All right, very well, Corey. As always, it's been a pleasure. I'll get to see you in a week. I'm going to start counting the days down.
Get a tea time for us, buddy.
I will. And by the way, your beard's not jet black. Looks good though. I like it.
It's not jet black, but it's definitely if you see it in person, it's a little more shocking than that picture.
It's not shocking. It's
if you saw it in person, I think it shocked Brady pretty good.
It's like a light brown, and you got some of your gray still peppered in there. It looks very natural. Right. I like it.
That's what I was hoping for.
You look like you're my younger brother or something.
I was going to say I look 22 again, don't I?
Yeah, keep it rolling, man.
Crazy.
Check that out, Shanna. Think about it. He's Corey. I'm Mazal. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.